welcome back to the Goal for 10 show. It's been a massive end to the pool groups. And when I say massive, there was some massive score lines. But as always, I'm your host, Tony. I'm joined by Baxter. Mate, how are you doing this evening?
Mate, I'm doing well. What about you, mate?
Oh, I'm doing well. I think we're doing a lot better than some of these teams that copped an absolute beating in the final game of the pools. But we will jump straight into it. We'll talk about each pool. We'll talk about the results, the two teams coming up. We'll then talk about, obviously, the quarterfinal matchups. There is some tasty matchups coming up. And then we'll have a bit of a discussion on, I guess, a bit of a team selection, more so for Australia, because that is where we're from. We'll have a bit of a chat, and then we'll move on to who we think will win those quarterfinal games. But jumping straight into it was an absolute cracking Pool A game. Points galore. Let's start off with that first one. England 94-4 Greece. I wish I could say this was the most points scored this round in a single game, but I can't. We'll get into that later. But what were your thoughts on this? And obviously, Dominic Young's 4 tries. Can we see him move into another club?
Of course you can. You can go anywhere he wants right now. He's the hottest player on the market, so to speak, because this is November 1 as we're recording. So a lot of players are up for contract negotiations. One I'll throw at you that's sort of flying under the radar is a number 6 down at Canberra. He's on the negotiation hot topic at the moment, so he's flying under the radar there. But we'll get back to England, mate. They didn't need to win by this much. They could have just gone out and beat them 10-4 or something like that, because this is like a disgrace to Greece. Like 90-odd points on Greece. It's just, mate, the Greece are on fire. They're burning down. I don't know what's going on with them. So hopefully in another 4 years they can bounce back. 3 years now. So hopefully they can bounce back in 2025.
Well, I guess it is important to say that football was illegal in Greece not too long ago. So I guess, yes, they did get smashed. To be at this stage, to be in the final 16 nations competing, it is quite a big result. But moving on to a game where arguably I think we both thought Samoa were going to get the win, but we did side with France purely because we wanted to see an upset in these groups. It was Samoa 62-4 against France. Samoa flexed their muscle. Now, I don't know how far they're going to be able to flex this muscle because they do have a tough game coming up. But what were your thoughts on Samoa? Are you impressed how they've changed since they played England, or do you think it's just they haven't come up against the caliber of an English side yet?
Nah, I don't think they have come up against a hard team like England. They will get tested in the finals if they do go deep within them. But a great game against France. Your man, Big Daddy Trent, not Trent. Trent Robertson. Sorry, I was having a mind blank there. He'd be really embarrassed by this scoreline. He's a big man on defense. Now, again, another team that needs to look at 2025 and look at how they can rebuild their international status.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big result. Obviously, we speak about how Trent has that defense mindset when he does come into games, and to cop 62 points is a lot, but I do think this backline of Samoa, minus that English game, definitely has potential. And I think England smashing them in the first game has kind of turned a few people away from how good that backline can really be. But we'll leave it there. As you can see, England topped the group, perfect, 3 from 3. Samoa, 2 from 3. France, 1 from 3. And Greece, well, like we said, better luck in 3 more years. But moving into Group B, it was the Australians. Kind of a bittersweet result for me, having an Italian heritage. But Australia, 66-6. It's kind of what we expected. There was a bit of a rotation. I'll ask you this because I both think we know that Australia were quite dominant in this game, but the halves pairing, obviously we saw DCE and Nathan Cleary play together, 2 number 7s, roaming around the pitch, or a number 2 and a number 14, whichever way you want to put it, depending on what system we're playing in. But what were your thoughts on that? And do you realistically see that as an opportunity going forward playing them, or do you think it's Munster straight back in and then Cleary or DCE to take the reign at 7?
Yeah, touching on Mao's comments, he really wanted to give everybody an opportunity to play some minutes, whether or not it was short 30 minutes off the bench, or was a full 90? Everybody got a chance to sort of have their turn. And unfortunately, Cameron Munster, he had 2 full games, so he could be. And luckily enough, we were fortunate that we could rest some big superstars. That's sort of, I guess you could say, how fortunate Australia are with the depth of players you have. If God forbid, if one of the halves period goes down, you can slot in a Jack Wyden at 6 or a Latrell at 6. You can put, Jack Wyden at centres. You can put him at fullback. You can put Ben Hunt at 7 mid-game if you had to. So that's something we're really grateful for. Unlucky for Italy. I know I was messaging you and I was just like, oh my God, Italy, what are they doing? But 60-66, I think we could have scored more points if Nathan Cleary could kick more better, but I don't think he'll be the predominant goal kicker going into the finals.
I mean, it'll be an interesting one. Obviously, Mao is pretty big on trusting knows who he wants to go forward, and I think giving Cleary to kick it in this game, I think he will be the first choice kicker purely because if you weren't going to use him, why would you give him this game? Why would you not look towards a Latrell or something like that? Try and mix it around and try and see who the best kicker is. But I think given, and we'll get into it a little bit later, the points he has scored, the kicking he has done, yes, he's missed a few. I do think Cleary does hold that. But moving into the other game in our pool, it was a bit closer than I think we both expected. I think we both went to 13 plus, or as you like to say, Scotland 30 plus before you corrected yourself. But it was Fiji 30-14 against Scotland. Fiji progresses. What were your thoughts? And I guess coming up against a big match, can they really challenge the big boys in the quarterfinals?
I think this is more so of making up the numbers. Obviously, someone from this group has to take out second spot. So it was just a battle for second amongst really the 2 teams, Fiji and Italy. Scotland had no chance. Yeah, they didn't even unpack their bags. Unlucky for them. But yeah, Fiji did well in this game, but they've got New Zealand next weekend. So it'll be very interesting to see how that game plays out. But yeah, well done in Fiji and unlucky Scotland.
Well, just like Pool A, it was Australia on undefeated, Fiji coming second on 4 points, Italy on 2 points, and obviously Scotland going home. It's not a long trip, so at least they'll be home in their beds a lot sooner than the other teams. But moving on to obviously Group C, again, it's the exact same as we can see. New Zealand undefeated on 6, Lebanon on 4, Ireland on 2, and Jamaica on 0. But moving into that first game, it was New Zealand 48, Ireland 10. I guess for me, I look at this group and I know we look at the other teams and go, oh, it could have been competitive. This is probably arguably one of the toughest groups in the sense of New Zealand were always going to dominate, but that Lebanon-Ireland game could go either way. So New Zealand's come out, they've topped the group, they've beaten Ireland 48-10. Your boy's not doing you any favors for top try scorer. So what were your thoughts on this game? And then moving forward, obviously we will get into it a little bit later, but can you see much of a challenge for them against Fiji? And then obviously a last point is Hargraves 1 game suspension. How big of a loss is that to New Zealand?
It is a loss because you lose a bit of experience on the field when to put down the foot on the accelerator, when to put the foot on the brake, how to control the tempo and give these, I wouldn't say rookie halves, but inexperienced halves at this international level a little bit of a knowledge. So it will be a miss. Ireland, unlucky again. They didn't really unpack their bags. Really had a good crack, but fell short. Lebanon, if that game against Ireland goes the other way, Lebanon are going home. So it was really a do or die here for Ireland, and unfortunately they fell short. We'll touch into Lebanon, 74-12 was really good. Jamaica, were they here just to make numbers up for the World Cup? Is there another nation that could have you could have substituted out and bring in because they really didn't know. It looked like they were playing a different sport for the first time and they had no idea. So sorry to the Jamaican team, but they progress and we'll take on Lebanon and hopefully we get the win.
Well, it's definitely very interesting because both these teams, if we do get past Lebanon and New Zealand does get past Fiji, it is who we're going to play. So obviously reading into that Lebanon game, yes, 74 points is brilliant. But if I'm the Lebanon coach, I'm also looking at the 12 points that we conceded against Jamaica. Now, I know you can't be perfect. You can't keep a shutout every game, but I think that's what they're going to have to look forward to because Australia's going to throw a lot more in attack against them. But again, like we said, 6 points for New Zealand, 4 points for Lebanon. Both progress. Ireland on 2 and Jamaica, unfortunately, go home on 0. Moving into Group D. And surprisingly, all 4 groups finished 6-4-2. I'm going to throw it to you first. 102 points scored in the game, 92-10 for Tonga, a team that you didn't see getting out of this group. So talk to me. Has your motto changed? Can they get past Samoa without going into too much detail? Because we will talk about that shortly. Are we going to say it? Are we going to tell Liam that you're wrong? Liam G, is he finally going to get I was wrong about Tonga, I'm not sleeping on them anymore?
As I said in other groups, unfortunately, there's going to be some teams that are going to make up the quarterfinals, and Tonga's one of them. They're here to just make up the numbers because they're not a real big threat. So I'll stick with that. They've surprised me and they've proven me wrong that they'll get out of the group, but they're no threat. I've seen some comments in the other post, the other video, about Jason Tamalolo. Yeah, he's great, but they don't have the players around him. And unfortunately, it's not like the NRL where you can just sort of buy a player and bring him in. You got to find a Tongan player to make him work a little bit more. So I don't see them getting past who they got, Samoa. I know the comments were like, oh, it's a Samoa backline, it's Tonga's front line. I see Samoa winning that one, but good on them. They've scored 92 points. As you said, touched on before, that worrying 10 points. Cook Islands are very, very good in attack when they like to play this jungle-style football and just let the ball get some air. So, be pretty impressive. Good stint for the Cook Islands, but unlucky. What did you make of the next game? 36-0, sorry.
Oh, well, for PNG, 36-0, that's kind of the way you want to go into that knockout stage. You want to go where, yes, you've put points on the board. Again, Wales, they weren't a strong team. Again, one of the fault, or just making up the numbers. They didn't get any points at this tournament. But 36-0 for PNG. We can attack, we can defend, we can shut out. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, it's just Wales. But again, it is 17 players that are coming at you at 100 miles per hour for 80 minutes. It's very impressive to keep a shutout regardless of who you're playing against. I think we saw that in the NRL with those bottom teams, the Titans, the Tigers, the Warriors, those kind of teams, they can put points on. So fair play to PNG. I thought it was a great performance. And I think arguably they are coming up against England. I think they do run short. They do finish up in the quarterfinals, but I think they can take a lot of confidence away from making the quarterfinals, and they'll obviously look to keep that game close. But what were your thoughts about this game, 36-0 to PNG?
Well, I'm glad PNG were playing the team Wales, not the animal Wales, and scored 36 unanswered points against this side. So it was really, really well. I think you've touched on it on all bases. Even the lower teams in the NRL can score points. So unfortunately for Wales, they need a real hard good look at themselves in the next 3 years because I don't know where it's played, but if that's the quality of football you're producing, you don't belong to be here. So, yeah.
Well, obviously, before we do jump into our predictions again, Tonga on 6, PNG on 4, Cook Islands on 2, Wales on 0. Let's jump into a few quick stats here. Most points, it is Nathan Cleary on 46. Quite impressive, seeming he's only played 2 games, and there is some players below him that have played all 3 games. Top try scorer is Dominic Young. He is on 8 after his 4 tries. I think Adokar is on 6, so he will be trying to chase him in the finals, and who knows, the final could be England-Australia, and that could determine who takes out this final game. But most goals, Nathan Cleary, 21. He probably should have a few more, like you did note on, obviously, off air. He did miss a few easy kicks in both games, but when you've played 2 games, you've knocked 21 kicks over. I'm probably not going to get too upset with you, but Baxter, it's what most people are going to be here for. We're here for knockout football. We're here for the quarterfinals. So we're going to jump right into it. Let's pop them up on the screen. Game 1, it is Australia taking on Lebanon. They're right there, the 2 big players that can determine this game. Nathan Cleary, Mitchell Moses. We're still waiting for team list to be announced, but how do you see this one playing out? And again, is it Cleary Munster? Is it DCE Cleary? Is it Munster DCE? Who's lining up in the halves for Australia?
Logic says it's Cleary. If you're looking to the future, it is Cleary. If you're going to hold on to incumbency, it's DCE. Heard some pundits talking about maybe putting DCE on the bench, but if you're going to carry Harry Grant and Ben Hunt in your 17, there's no spot for a second half, regardless if it is Cherry or Cleary to sit on the bench. If that was the case, I think it's just a wasted opportunity. Should have done that maybe against Italy or against Scotland, maybe test it out. See, that would have been a great game to sort of test it out. But I'm going to lean with Cleary. Munster plays 6, Hunt 9, Teddy unfortunately plays 1. So that's just the way it's going to be.
All right, and obviously the question we always ask week in, week out: Australia, Lebanon, 1 to 12, 13 plus. How do you see this one going?
I'm actually going to go really, really short. It's going to be 1 to 10 Australia. I think Lebanon surprise us and jump us early, and we have to claw back, and it'll be a good contest. I think it's 5 or 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday, so it'll be great. I know we'll be speaking about it later that day at a child's birthday party, so it'll be good to talk about it there. But as I stick to it, 1 to 10 Australia. Man, Matt, if I can pick a man of the match, if I'm going to go Harry Grant, and he's going to come off the bench, he's going to be electrifying. I'm going to go him.
Well, I am going to go 13 plus. I'm going to give you some good news. We get an extra hour sleeping because kickoff is at 6:30 a.m. So it's even better for us in Australia. We finally get another decent time. But I'm going to go 13 plus. No disrespect to Lebanon, but I just think there's way too much class. And like we've mentioned today, Harry Grant can play in the 9. Ben Hunt can play in the 9. Ben Hunt can swap into the halves. There's all that rotation. Like if you wanted to put Tedesco on the centers, he could do a job there. Latrell Mitchell can play fullback. He can jump at the 5'8". There's too many rotations where if the game isn't going our way, we flip a switch. We bring our players off the bench. They make a difference. We rotate. It makes a difference. So I'm going to lock in Australia 13 plus. We're going to move across to a game that I don't want to say it, but could get a little bit ugly. It is England taking on PNG. That game for Australia is at 1:30 on the morning on Sunday. Can't say I'm going to be up for this unless there's some Premier League action going on at the exact same time. But Baxter, how do you see this one playing out? Obviously, England going in heavy favourites. PNG can cause an upset. They've shown that once before. But do you see this kind of being one-way traffic?
I'm going to say no. And again, I think more though. I think that PNG surprise England with some plays, catch them off guard, and it's going to be a 1 to 12 for England. It would be really good to see this man on screen score some tries for England, but I'll stick with it 1 to 12. But I don't think we can get up at that one at 1:30 in the morning because it's the FA Cup. So I'm not even getting up for this game. So there's no point. What about you, man?
I don't know what you're talking about, but FA Cup, mate. There's Premier League action on. It's match day 15. So I'm not sure what you're looking at.
I've got round 1 FA Cup. I'm just looking at FA Cup. I was like, I'm not getting enough for that.
It's a tough one. I think England obviously have the potential here to put points on. They've shown that they can score a shit ton of points, but I'm going to go in the region of 1 to 12 purely because I think PNG are smarter than the teams England have played so far. They know that they're going to be up against it. They're going to back their defense a lot. They'll try and get on the front foot with a few early kicks, but ultimately I do see England winning this. So I'm going to go 1 to 12. If I had to break it down even further, I think it's going to be that 8 to 12 bracket. However, I do think there is a massive, massive possibility it does go 13 plus, but I'm going to stay a bit reserved here. I'm going to go England to take out the game 1 to 12. But moving on to a game where I've seen stranger things happen. Obviously, we look at the left-hand side. The two winners of those are going to play each other. It could set up a blockbusting semi-final between Australia and New Zealand. But how do you see this one going? It is New Zealand taking on Fiji.
I think this is going to be the blowout of the quarterfinals. We've got New Zealand 13 plus. Hopefully, Joey Manu can cross the line and show some form how to score tries because he hasn't been performing well. I thought that maybe injury/rest towards the back end of the regular season in the NRL could do him some good, but obviously it's not worked out that way with the try scorers. But nevertheless, he could come out and do an Josh Adokar special and score 4 or 5 tries against this soft edge for the Fijians. So we'll have to wait and see. I'll stick with it. New Zealand 13 plus. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 20 plus. I think New Zealand blow them out of the water. If you're a New Zealander here, you want your team to be up comfortable at halftime. So who knows? You might rest some of these players, not risk him getting suspensions. You might rest the Joe Manu, make sure he doesn't get injured. You've got Australia coming up. So I can see New Zealand going gun-ho, getting a massive lead, resting a few players. But on Joey Manu, I know you spoke about it last week. He's still playing unbelievable. He's still got the most tackle breaks. He's running like crazy. It's just the attack at New Zealand doesn't allow him to kind of do what he does at the Roosters, where he just roams everywhere. And that's crazy saying at the Roosters he plays as a centre and you see him on the left edge half the time, then the right edge in the centre. Whereas New Zealand, I feel like he's just going through the motions. He's biding his time. And fuck me, we could have a Tedesco versus Joey Manu in that semi-final. Mate, that could be electric from both sides. As a Roosters fans, you're licking your lips going, can't wait for next season. But we'll move into obviously the last...
I'll be saying, winner takes fullback here. This is what you're playing for.
I think you're drunk, but that's all right. You got an agenda against Tedesco. But moving into the final game, it is Tonga versus Samoa. But before I do get your prediction, Liam G has sent in a comment. He said it'd be interesting in who you'd pick out of Samoa and Tonga in the quarterfinals. Tonga obviously have the forwards. Samoa has the back line. This could be the game of the tournament. And arguably, that last bit, I have to kind of agree with him. This could be the game of the tournament, given how both these teams play. But I'll throw it to you. First part of the questions. Tonga have the forwards. Samoa has the back line. 1 to 12, 13 plus. Who are you picking and why?
I think he's hit the nail on the head very cleanly, saying this matchup is going to be the game of the tournament. Unfortunately, it has to happen in the quarterfinals, not a semi or a final. I'm going to side with Samoa. I just think the back line, which is predominantly Panthers, have that sort of more cohesion. They know how to play with each other, so they know how to defend when it matters. And I think they'll do, as you say in any sport. We talk about soccer, NRL, NFL. Attacks win your games, but defense wins your titles and premierships. So I'm saying here the defense of Samoa in the back line will prevail over the attack power and the forwards from Tonga.
1 to 12, 13 plus. What are you going for?
I'm going really, really out there. I'm going 1 to 5.
Well, I've got to agree with you. Obviously, my comment back to Liam was I back the experience in the halves. And again, yes, Tonga have the forwards, but Samoa have that back line. They have the experience in the halves. Mate, that guy on screen right now, he knows how to win a premiership. Whether or not you want to say it's behind Cleary, he knows how to go back to back. He was a part of those teams. Cleary was out. He still kept that ship steady. So there's a massive chance. It'll be interesting. And I'd argue it's the game of the quarterfinals, and it could be the game of the tournament. We don't know, but obviously we're going to jump into a little thing that I didn't actually let you prepare for this, but
good.
It's going to be calling it way too early because we're still in the quarterfinals, but Australia, New Zealand, we've both picked them to win. That is the quarterfinal game. Who's going off to the final?
Australia. I'm not doubting our boys any little bit less. I think they can get the job done and they can go back to back world champs.
Well, I mean, you just ruined the next question after this one, but we'll go through it before we talk about that. England versus PNG. We've got England winning. Tonga versus Samoa. We've both got Samoa winning that game. Who takes it out? Who's facing Australia in that final?
It's going to be the home soil, England. Now, as much as I sit here and say Australia's going to take it out, I don't think it's going to be an easy stroll in the park for Australia nor England. I think it'll be a very forwards-based game. It's going to be a powerhouse of who wins the middle in that game in the final. And I believe, and this is the bias coming out, I believe that Australia will have that. Will have the more power to sort of come out of that and win it. England, as much as they've been impressive in the group stage, they haven't really been tested, and they haven't been tested in previous years. So Australia have been there and done it, so I'll back them. And England, thanks for hosting it, but we'll take the trophy.
Well, there you have it. It's the moment. It's called too early. Is it called too early? We don't know. But Baxter, Australia is going back to back. Print it, press it, put it in the Daily Telegraph. It's happening. I've got to agree with you. I do think Australia gets past New Zealand. I do think England gets past Samoa or Tonga. I argue that it will be a lot closer if England do play Samoa again. But I still think that they get ahead on the momentum of, mate, we flogged you in the first game. We know how to break down your defense. Bring it on. But it's going to be interesting. It could set up a cracking final between NRL Australia, England Super League. We'll see who the dominant is. But Baxter, we will be back. We will talk about that. We will talk about any transfers that do come up, given it is November 1. But, mate, I look forward to obviously speaking with you. And last but not least, make sure you wish the little one a happy birthday tomorrow because it is his birthday tomorrow. So make sure you wish him a happy birthday. Get a good night's sleep and make sure you spoil him. But we'll talk Saturday, mate.
I'm going to work. Mum can deal with him. I'm going to work. See you later.
Mum can deal with him. But Bax, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure we'll speak about this before the games, after the games. But, mate, stay tuned because we've got a lot coming. And thank you for joining me again.
Peace out.